It seriously doesn't take much for you to find hypocrisy on the internet. But before I even get into the subject of this video, I want to show you a picture, and I want you guys to tell me honestly, before you even watch the rest of the video, which is usually what people end up doing, what you think about this picture. What is the first thing that comes to your mind? Male, female, no matter what age you are. I'm guessing it was up there long enough for you guys to understand the entirety of what's going on in the photo. Who here thinks that the guy in the photo, little kid, is lucky? Who else thinks that this is wrong and he's a victim? And this is where we come to the double standard. For those of you who instantly went to the mindset of, he's lucky, okay, fair enough. He's a little child who is being groped by adults. And it's okay because as far as what most of the internet says, he's happy, right? He doesn't look like he's suffering. He doesn't look like he's not enjoying himself. He's not a wallflower. He is lucky. I would have been lucky at his age to be groped by females like that. And I find it very interesting that people have this mindset. But if the roles were reversed, it would be very different for a girl child. Not only that, the roles don't even have to be reversed. If those two chicks were butt fugly, everybody would be crying and saying how this is awful and what they're doing to him, because only then is it qualified as rape. And then you wonder why we have situations like this. Where the women get off scot-free and you'll have these same men saying that this kid is lucky, bitching and moaning and complaining that a woman has now trapped a young child who was not ready to be a father and requires him to now pay child support while she just skips jail time. These same men will come out and claim how the justice system is unfair to them, which I do agree it is. But then those same men will come and say, look how lucky he is, this is amazing. The kid looks like he's freaking 10 years old, 12 years old. There's some people who reach puberty at an early age, and if he were to knock up one of these girls, guess what? He would be responsible for their kid. They probably wouldn't go to jail because they don't look like the fucking Hulk or Abomination. And as soon as he hits 18, before he can even start his life or get his shit together, he is required to pay child support. And it's completely okay because there's the double standard there. You cannot be on one side saying that it's not fair that men are treated like this, but then also praise the behavior which results in young men being preyed upon. Make it make sense, people. I was actually really shocked. Like, I've heard people talk like this before, but I really had to wonder. Even if you're thinking it, there's just certain things that you probably should not say publicly. Guess who else thought they were lucky? And I don't mean like at a 4-year-old age. When I was about 6, 7, after it's been done to me several times, I started getting hypersexual. I started feeling as though adult men who were in their 40s and 50s or 20s and 30s who were paying attention to little old 7-year-old me, that I was lucky too. Look at those big dudes. Look at those men. Ha! All those little girls having crushes on those schoolboys. They're nothing. These mature men is where it's at. They actually care about you. I'm mature enough that they want to be with me in that manner. They call me their girlfriend. It's our little secret. I felt lucky as shit. I was like, ooh, yeah, stick it. Like, is that okay? If you guys don't feel as though I was lucky as a little girl, as a little child, being railed by adult men and some women, why would you feel the same way about a little boy? There are some boys, however, who do end up in situations like this, where they feel as though, based on their environment, that this constitutes as luck, because that's what they see the adults doing. Same thing with little girls. See the adult females getting the attention of males, and they will think that getting the attention of adult males is normal. Does that make it okay because the kid feels as though he's fucking lucky? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit peeved about this, but the reason why I'm peeved is because there is a double standard that's going on. And I know people get on me because political aisle of the equation, I sit in the middle, or I sit as a centrist, which people absolutely hate. And one of the things that I purport whenever I'm making these arguments is that I agree with some policies on both sides, and I disagree with some policies on both sides. Now here's where I'll call out the shit from both sides. This is where both sides are wrong. You go on Twitter, and this has been going on for a while. There are some people who have hijacked the queer community. Let's not mince words, it's the elephant in the freaking room of the internet, sitting there with its BBL perked ass, and it's smelling up the entirety of our existence. And these people come forward and claim that children should make life-altering decisions when they are not allowed to do things that will have life-altering consequences, like drinking, drugs, sex. I mean, you know what I'm saying? saying kids cannot consent to certain things because they're at an age where their brains are not fully developed. They cannot properly make those decisions. When I was little, I was being bullied and I felt like I was a cat. I love my cats. I grew up with cats and I did start literally feeling mentally like I was a cat. And coupled with people taking advantage of me, I just did not like people. I started feeling like, you know what? Maybe the ways I'm being bullied and I don't fit in with anyone is because I'm not actually human. I think I'm probably a cat. And I felt like I was out of my body. I felt like I was just living a human experience, but I was truly a cat reincarnated as a human being. You know what happened though? I grew up, I learned how to live life, I grew a tough skin, and I stopped pretending or thinking that I was a cat. Another thing that would happen that kind of scares me because I feel as though if it had happened now, it's really surprising what a difference a few years makes, but if it had happened now when I was a kid, someone would have told me I was trans because I used to want a penis. Which little girl doesn't? You see guys and they look so lucky with being able to stand up and pee and being strong, and I wanted to be like that. And because I also grew up around boys, my mother had gone to the States to get her nursing degree and better opportunities over there and whatnot and pave the way for us as immigrants. And I stayed with my father. And the neighborhood we stayed in, it was like a upper middle class neighborhood. But every single kid that lived there were boys. Every single one. I was the only girl. And wait, there was one other girl, but she had cerebral palsy and she couldn't really speak. I took care of her sometimes, so she couldn't walk. Her legs were all crooked. We never really saw her, aside from when I would go and spend time with her. So outside, I'm playing with all these boys. I like the things that boys like. I idolize my father because he's a man. I used to walk like my dad. People thought I was a boy until I took off my hoodie and they saw the long hair and then they're like, oh, you're a girl. I used to, and I know this is very private, but I'm trying to make a point here. As a little girl, I would take socks and roll them up and stuff them in my pants and pretend that I had a penis. You know how kids go, they humping your pillows and you're pretending you're a boy. Like, there are a lot of people who have done that. I'm sure there's guys who have done that too with their mother stuff. I have done that pretending to be a guy because I want to know what it feels like. There was power in it. And I do understand that a lot of that mentality was a result of men taking advantage of me when I was little from I was 4 years old. So I do get that's where some of that comes from with the hypersexuality and that way of thinking. And then what happened is I would still have crushes on guys. I'd still like guys, but I also developed this sensation and this way of thinking that made me only feel attracted to guys or attracted to the act if I was focused on the guy getting off, because that's how it was introduced to me. It wasn't about my pleasure, it was about these adult males. That's why they're called predators. They were preying on me. It wasn't about that. It was about them tricking me into thinking that this was something special for their own entertainment. So in my mind, I wanted to please them because that was, again, how I was conditioned and groomed. So I would pretend to be a guy, and the idea of being a guy and getting off being attracted to a girl or an act like that, that was something that was screwed into my mind. Didn't mean I wanted to be a boy per se, but that's how I express myself. Had an adult come along and seen this, they would have thought, oh, do you feel like a boy? And I would say in that moment, yes, I did. There was a feeling of power there. That was the only time I felt like I had power in the situation. And I was attractive because as a guy, you know, it was just so alluring. Them being able to come in with their sweet words and their strength, and you just become mesmerized by it. You become enamored with it. And as a little girl, that's what happened, especially when it was a repeated thing. So in that moment, yes, I would have answered yes, I feel like a boy, because at that moment I did. And if I had an irresponsible parent, thank goodness I kept it a secret, but if I had an irresponsible parent, they would have tried to put puberty blockers on me, and they would want me to express my truth, because in that moment, that's what I felt. However, what happened is, when I did hit puberty, I still was a tomboy, and I would express myself as a tomboy, but I still like guys. Like, I like guys. I wasn't sexually attracted to girls, even though I understood that they were sexually attractive, and I would imagine as a guy getting off on that, so that was kind of kinky to me, but me, myself, as my own individual self, was not attracted to females in that way. Even though part of the pedo experience that I experienced, females were also a part of that. More so guys, there was like 2 or 3 females. One of them doesn't really count, it was another kid, but 2 of them were adult females. So yes, females can be predators as well. But as I grew and I saw other girls, and I saw what guys were into biologically and naturally, and I say that because that's honestly, that's the average. average. Most guys are into femininity. It is what it is. It's part of what the animal kingdom runs on. I realized that I didn't want to be perceived as masculine. I wanted to be more feminine naturally because I wanted to attract these guys my age or a little bit older. And I realized that's what I had to do because just like with women, there's certain things that women on a whole, more often than not, are attracted to. Even in same-sex relationships, you will always have the masculine and feminine dynamic more often than not. So all of that aside, or to preface, as a kid, I went through series of phases based on what I was feeling, what I went through, my mindset, my environment, my experiences. But it didn't stop at just that. I kept on developing. I kept on evolving emotionally. And when I was at an age, like say 15, I realized, oh, this is who I was. This is what I want. I want to marry that guy. Yeah, and guess what happened? Years go by and I turn 18 and don't want those same things. I am not saying that kids don't have feelings or they shouldn't be validated with their feelings, but making life-altering decisions that they can never come back from once they're adults and they decide, you know what, I don't want this, I'm sorry, that is abuse. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would resent my parents had they gotten me a tattoo and did surgery on my eyes and my ears to make me look like a cat, or shaved off my whatever and put on something else. I would have been fucked up. I really would have been, because your mind changes after a while based on your experiences and hormones. You have to allow that to develop at some point. That being said, you can still affirm them, but as a parent, I think it's responsible to say, before you drink, before you get a tattoo, before you do all these things, before you take out a freaking loan, which is something that, funny enough, they give leeway to people making certain decisions at 17 and 16 to take out loans that will destroy their credit and stuff. We're not even gonna get into that. But anyway, sorry, this is completely unscripted and rambly. Kids should be allowed to grow first. You cannot say on one hand that, well, they can't consent to this, but on the other hand, they can consent to this. Now, I know some people probably be asking, well, what about medication? What about Motrin and treating a child that has an issue? Well, that's a very different thing, because one is a mental condition where the child has body dysmorphia and feels as though they are not born in the right body. Their body is still functioning medically, but their mind isn't. And the other is a physical ailment that requires medical intervention so they don't die. So they don't have debilitating physical effects later that will prevent them from functioning physically in life. We can break down that some more, but that's the excuse there. Usually medicine is to correct something that is not the normal function of the body. And being born in the wrong body or feeling as though you're in the wrong body is not a normal function, or else you wouldn't be, if you were experiencing that, so distressed by it. It is something that is not right with you, I get it, but it is also a mental state. And saying that is not meant to be offensive or to invalidate your experience. But if I came out the next day and I told my mom, because this has actually happened with other people, that I didn't want my legs anymore, I just don't feel like they belong to me. There's an actual person that exists that went through that body dysmorphia. Another person had her eyes, started pouring bleach in her eyes because she felt like she didn't want to see. She wasn't meant to see. She wanted to be blind. That's body dysmorphia. And people will try to pick and cherry pick and say, that's not the same thing. Yes, it is. It is the same thing with a different body part or a different situation. And to the point where you are mutilating yourself and endangering yourself, something that will cause life-altering, permanent damage to your body functioning as it should, that should be something that is staved off until the person is old enough to make that permanent decision themselves. It's completely different if a child has a fever and they're going to die. Just putting that out there. Now, why do I say all this? Because as of late, I've noticed, everybody's noticed, I just haven't been talking about it, but a lot of these people are saying, no, the kid should be fine, the kid should do this, the kid should do that, let them do whatever. And that's not necessarily a right, a responsible take, especially for very young children. So understandably, the people who are pushing this that say, well, you know, they should have puberty blockers because it's not that big of a deal. Let's ignore all the people who were having distress, experiencing the stress over changing their bodies permanently, losing their breasts, losing their testicles, becoming sterile when now they want to have children, when they've made that full transition. Let's ignore those people because they're just a fringe, even though the entirety of people who do have body dysmorphia is a fringe in and of itself. Let's ignore that. And all people were saying is, hey, stop trying to indoctrinate kids into making them think that this is the end all be all. When what really needs to happen is someone needs to sit down with them and and really talk with them, not rushing them into a permanent decision when they're not even sure what that is. A lot of this also, these people are hijacking the queer community and they're not really queer. Let's talk about this. I know I've talked to some of my friends as well who are queer, and they have noticed this as well. They're just not as vocal about it, but more of them are starting to be vocal about it because it was honestly something, based on what my friends said, just snuck up on them because they had no idea this was happening despite them being a part of the queer community. And what these people are doing is they are overriding what the parents are asking, which is, hey, it's good to let them know these people exist, okay? People with these conditions exist, sure, but can you not like push on my child that, you have to take puberty blockers and, your parents don't tell them, just, that's not right. That's weird. That's weird. And so that's where people are saying, hey, leave the children alone. Having drag queens, that is fine. I think that drag queens are beautiful. I think it's a really interesting way of expression. One of my first experiences, or actually my exposure to it, was when I watched the movie To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything. It was showing, and I was like, what is this? And it was Wesley Snipes, John Leguizamo, and what's his name again? Mitch? I don't know. Patrick? I don't know. But I was like, this is so freaking cool. And in that moment, while I'm watching them, they're women to me because that's how they're expressing themselves. So that was my exposure to them. That was my first exposure. I didn't recognize them at the time being drag queens, but now I know that's what they are. And it was completely fine. Didn't have people in school though bringing drag queens in front of me and giving me a lap dance. Grown ass men with their full on balls and everything rubbing up on my crotch as a child. Am I saying all drag queens do this? No. Am I saying all the queer communities? Of course not. However, you will have the few fringe people that will behave in a very inappropriate manner, and they are what people are seeing as a representative.
I find this to be age appropriate for children.
Do I find this to be age appropriate?
Yeah.
For my child, yeah.
Hello, you're reaching for my titties. Are you hungry?
Do you mind me asking how old she is?
She's 12.
12.
She knows about sex, and she doesn't see sex.
Yeah. Well, she kind of sees simulated sex in the show.
She goes to school. She sees simulated sex all the time.
Like, when I saw that movie, To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, that was a beautiful representation of what drag are. And then now you're having, with social media, more of these videos being lauded of these people doing this to kids. And this is the representation. And instead of people coming out who are part of the community and saying, no, that's not us. Those are those freaking weirdos over there. Just like with straight people, they will come out with pedos and say, yeah, hang that person. Even though, okay, that's a little bit extreme, but that's what people say on the internet. Straight people will come out and say, that is not okay. That is not okay. Everyone and their grandmother agrees that it's not okay to do that to children, to leave the children alone. That's what people are saying. And I don't know when it became a problem to say something like that, regardless of your orientation, to leave kids alone. Like, that's so odd to me. So now here we are. And I agree, yes, we should leave the kids alone, talk to your kids, do whatever, but please, grown men, grown women, straight, queer, bi, whatever, I don't give a fuck. Leave kids alone. You shouldn't be rubbing up your shit on them and have your ass out in a little girl or little boy's face. That's fucking bizarre. And I am so happy I'm an adult now and this didn't happen when I was a kid, because there were some instances where I was molested where it was fucking scary. And had grown-ups been around me egging this whole thing on now, I probably would have grown up to be a huge whore. I don't know. Just calling me crazy. I don't think this is rocket science. Now here's the tea. Now that I've addressed that side, because let's be honest, we know there's certain people who are pushing for this. Here's the other flip side of it. You'll have men from the other side of the aisle who will be chanting, leave the kids alone, leave the kids alone. Fair enough. I agree. But then you will have a post like the one I showed where these same men are saying how this kid is lucky and I wish I were him. How many of you wish you were him, right? How is it that y'all are saying leave the kids alone? But in this specific situation, all of a sudden that goes out the window. And then you have some dumbass people being like, it's not the same. Cutting off your penis and having someone grope it is not the same. Are you fucking serious? I cannot believe the mental gymnastics going on. You have crazy people on the left and you have crazy people on the right. You have crazy people on the left saying, no, we should do this to the kids. But you have crazy people on the right saying, no, we shouldn't, but yeah, touch them and touch them. Groomers, haha, groomers. While they're also praising the act of grooming children when it's done to boys. Like, do you not see the double standard here? And that's what I am. I call out the hypocrisy on both sides. Also, another thing, on the other side, you have people fighting back against this whole thing with, the children or whatever. And they're chanting, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children.
in the ass?
Do you not think that it is in poor taste to do something like that when you are trying to debunk the notion that people are putting out there that you're doing that very thing? It's very weird. Like, you cannot sit there and try to debunk what people are saying and to be a good representative of your community and fight the bigots by affirming that you're coming for their children, which is what you don't want them to think. What the fuck is wrong with people? Seriously. And people on the other side, you're not okay with grooming and you're accusing these people of grooming children, yet you are also celebrating a child being groomed so long as he's straight. What is wrong with people? Like, seriously, I'm so surprised right now. Like, and the thing is, people like me, if you talk about stuff like this and you point it out, you're the bad guy, apparently. You're the villain. What in the hell? So there's hypocrisy on one side and there's hypocrisy on the other side. And the both of y'all actually would get along really, really well because you were basically cut from the same cloth. And if you'd all know that, maybe we'd have a bit more discussion. But I think it's fair to say that grooming of any sort, regardless if the kid looks like he's enjoying it, which is a weird pedo thing to say. Look, he likes it. Look, she likes it. Look, she's smiling. They're not hurt. Just two grown-ass women touching this 8-year-old kid. It's okay. Look, he's having fun. Okay. Let's keep that same energy then when it comes to the queer community. Just saying. If you're gonna call them out and say what they're doing is wrong, and I have seen members of the queer community also come out and say, yeah, the kids are not, like those freaking maps that are trying to hijack the community. Well, they enjoy it. They know what they want. Look, they're not scared of us. It's only you guys that are. How are you different though? How are you different? You're calling them out and saying they're groomers and pedos, but you were doing the exact same thing. So let's stop with the hypocrisy, shall we? I was actually shocked when I saw this on Twitter because I'm seeing this, I'm like, dude, stop. What are you doing? What do you guys think? Like, let's actually have a discussion because I feel like, funny enough, with the advent of social media, where it's supposed to facilitate people having discussions, is the time now when people are having the least amount of discussions. Call me crazy, but it just feels like the more we're able to hear each other, the less we're actually hearing each other, and the less we're able to actually be self-aware as to what the fuck we're doing.